I'm Lillian, and this is Table 5's video. I read the article, How BT Corn and Roundup Ready Soy Work and Why You Should Not Be Scared of Them. And it focused mainly on looking at the specifics of BT corn and Roundup Ready soy and not looking at GMOs as a whole. And I wanted to focus on how they work and why they're safe. And I thought this article fit well with the article, How Do You Make a Transgenic Plant? Because this focused on the hows of GMOs as well. Mine talked about the specific genes do once they're in the plant, but that article talked about how the genes are transferred to the crop initially. And it just, together the articles help you understand the process as a whole.
Okay, I'm Anna, and the paper that I chose was from Colorado State University. It was called How Do You Make a Transgenic Plant? The most important concept from this paper was just that there are two types of genetic modification, and one is the gene gun method, which works better with monocrop plants like wheat, corn, and rice, and then there's a second method that's called the agrobacterium method, and this one works better with dicot plants like soybeans, potatoes, and tomatoes. And the paper that I thought was most synergistic with mine was Why We Will Need Genetically Modified Foods, because this paper offered another idea of a potential method for genetic modification. This paper said that this gene gun method that can be used is not always accurate or effective, so it gave the idea of being able to go directly into the plant and changing the gene so you can have a more accurate placement of the desired gene that you want. And I thought that these papers worked well together because they both talk about different methods of genetic modification.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I read the article Why We Will Need Genetically Modified Foods. And this article talked about, the first half talked about the increasing population and how potentially decreasing yields would make it nearly impossible to feed the predicted 9 billion people by 2050. And the second half of the article talked more about the different types of genetic modification and how these methods are varying and how some of them might be more publicly accepted. And the article that I thought was synergistic with it was How Do You Make a Transgenic Plant? Because they both talk about methods of genetic modification, and while mine gives more of a description of the gene gun and then talks about how maybe the gene gun isn't so effective at being about genetically modifying things, and how maybe an alternative of going into the plant could be better because it doesn't use any foreign pieces.
And my name is Chantel. I read Genetic Modification Trails Conventional Breeding by Far, which is about how genetic modification isn't effective at addressing traits that are affected by a large number of genes. Things like drought tolerance and cold tolerance are affected by a lot of genes, and genetic modification just isn't good at helping with these issues in crops. In contrast, Transgenics, a new breed, really discussed how nutritional value of crops is affected by just one or a pair of genes, and is something that can have a huge impact on malnutrition in the world. So, for example, golden rice has the potential to have a big impact for those suffering from beta-carotene deficiency, and yet isn't being grown, which is a whole other issue. But anyway, there's a real synergy there, and overall our group came to the conclusion that although transgenics can't replace conventional breeding, there are a lot of instances in which things like specific disease resistance or specific nutrition have a real potential to be impacted by genetic modification.